support, and we found that. Okay, so we found that Black and Hispanic students reported more Black and Hispanic say that financial support and family responsibility were the reason that they delay graduation. And so we look at this, another indicator that we actually use this from US Census. So US Census recently launched a national survey every week, and we collect the same data. So we ask our respondent whether they have family member experience a loss of employment income since March 13. That was an announcement on national emergency. And we saw that Hispanic reported higher rate. And this reflects the national trend too, but no significant across gender. And it tend to be more undergraduate report because they are more representative of the population. So one particular area in this survey is remote learning from student and also faculty perspective. So we found that female students reported more challenges with educational technology. So the top challenges among students across gender group is they checked that instructor discomfort or lack of familiarity with required technology. And girls reported higher rate in this item and across other item. Another item is adequate digital replacement for face-to-face collaboration tool. And then the third would be the reliable internet services. We do have other items, but these are three top items. And we saw the consistent pattern that girls reported higher rate in those. And then when it's come to racial group, we saw that white, Black, Hispanic all reported more challenges compared to Asian in terms of the same indicator. And then in adjusting to remote learning, again, girls report, they seem more struggle more. So for example, first item, difficult focusing or paying attention to remote instruction or activity. Or second, more personal motivation to complete coursework after instruction moving to remote learning. And girls also reported they tend to prefer face-to-face learning. Okay, so this is definitely one issue. We want to focusing on these gender differences in remote learning in the future for a special report for this. And then when it's come to racial group, we don't see difference between Black and Asian, but white and Hispanic tend to report more struggle for the same item. So, and then how about from the perspective of faculty? Faculty experience of remote learning. We see the same trend among faculty. Women tend to report more challenges with education technology. And for example, several items like student discomfort or my own discomfort of or lack of familiarity with the technology. And then in adapting to remote teaching, again, female faculty also tend to report they are struggling more. For example, the second items, course lessons or activity hasn't translated well to remote environment. And then the third item, I have limited personal time or energy to effectively adapt to remote learning. And we will see this come up. We did collect some other individual items about stress. And then when it comes to racial group, we saw that compared to Asian or white, Black, Hispanic faculty struggle more in adapting to remote teaching. So keep in mind, we are doing here is just bivariate correlation. So we suspect that many Asian, they are probably computer science, computer engineering faculty here. So they probably are more familiar with technology. So for our analysis that I present today, we do not account for those kind of differences in discipline. And then today, I only have one slide because we are still digging into this mentoring. We have several items about mentoring, but we start seeing a pattern that mentoring while social distancing is likely to be very challenging because pretty much generally all faculty and students, they report that they tend to think face-to-face is more effective than e-communication when it's come to different types of instrumental support or psychosocial support in the mentoring process. So stay tuned. I mean, we will have a specific brief report on this issue down the road. You know. And then two more specific topic here in our survey as well is decreased confidence in finding a job among STEM students due to COVID-19. So we found that girls compared to boys, they became less confident. So the question we asked is, since the outbreak, So did you become more or less confident in finding jobs that qualify? So we have 3 items, and I combined these 3, and then we found this, running this regression and see that girls tend to report, they became less confident, and Hispanic and Asian as well. And Asian here, we suspect that there are many of those are international students. So we are, again, a reminder here, we do not account for some other background characteristic. And then lastly is, I think, talk to my colleague, we need to write a specific report for this too. So increased stress among STEM faculty since the COVID-19 outbreak. We have several items. We asked faculty, so since the pandemic, so which some of these items has become a new source of stress, and then to a small extent or moderate or great extent. So here we quote who reported moderate and great extent. And female faculty reported overwhelmingly increased stress in all items compared to male faculty, except 2 items, service and community work or concern for colleagues. So for example, the top source, the most cited source of stress is institutional budget cut. This is also interesting that we see that institutional changes affect individual as well as faculty stress. And then of course, research productivity increased responsibility. And then the bottom 4 more tend to be more personal. You can see that some of those are also important, but some of the top reasons are more institutional, that institution can do to mitigate this stress. And then when we look at the racial ethnic differences, we don't see much difference across racial group. Although we see like Black or Hispanic reported greater extent in teaching role or review promotion process, but just 2 items, but not other items, not as when we compare women to male faculty there. Yeah. So I think I only have like 8 minutes to present. So that's kind of quick overview of what we have so far. So, and if you have any question or you want to learn more about this, feel free to contact me or my colleagues. Okay, and I'm open for Q&A. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saul. And I think this information is very helpful for us to have a discussion towards the end of, after the next presentation. So yeah, very interesting data and very interesting insight on. I have a question. So I don't know, maybe we have time for one question. What are the differences between junior and senior faculty? Were you able to explore between those 2 groups?
Yes. So this is next step, Ecuador. Thank you. So hopefully if you have another round of town hall, we will come back to this. So we have 1,000 faculty here and 40%, round about 40% assistant professor, and then a quarter associate, a quarter full. And we haven't got into that area. We do have that sample size to do the analysis. And also we actually oversample faculty and students from minority serving institution. So our next step is also want to look at the differences across minority serving institution and non-minority institution. By this point, I have nothing solid to share yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
so we understand direction to explore that.
We understand it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah.
We understand that, and we look forward to learn more about the results. Yeah. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned,
survey closed last week, and we were working around the clock to present some number today. Yeah, so this is kind of like world premiere, I say. Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's an interest, and is very important. Yeah.
Thank you, and we really appreciate that effort for having this presentation ready for today. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're gonna have three parts in this town hall. So the next part is on, let me share the screen. So next we're gonna have Taryn Lewis from Informs, the Director of Education and Industry Programs at Informs. And she is going to be providing us with an overview of how is the current job market for our grad students from the Informs perspective. So thank you, Taryn, for joining us, and I'll give you do you have well, I'll give you the control now. Thank you.
Okay. One second. Let's see. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so the survey that we did was a much smaller scale than the one that was just presented. This survey was a survey to evaluate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on students' opportunities in the workforce. So we set out to create a very brief, easy to complete survey. The results were divvied up into responses from students, practitioners, and faculty or administrators at universities. And so we had the survey out for a couple of weeks. As you can see here, we had about an 82% completion rate, only about 282 responses. This was disseminated to members of Informs and also through our social media avenues, sorry. So we've just started to sort of look at the results of this. And so I have some preliminary insights, but the team, which is made up of myself, our Vice President of Education and Vice President of Practice from the board. And we also pulled in two of our committees, the Meetings of Analytics Provider Committee and also the Committee for Industry and Academic Collaborations, because we really see this as an effort that requires collaboration between these two groups in order to help our students find opportunities. So some preliminary insights here. Pretty much all of the respondents were employed. We only got a really small group that responded that said they were currently unemployed. And most of the people were mid-career, which is the 5 to 20-year group. Of the students, we saw that most of them were graduating in either they graduated this year or they're graduating over the next year, next 12 months. What was really concerning was that about a third of those students really did not know how they were going to deal with the lack of opportunities or the change in opportunities. Not one particular region of the country or the world was this problem isolated. For our practitioners, we had about a good number of them were considered non-management or non-executive. So that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into the sort of what their role might be. Very small group were CEOs or like vice president level people. So it kind of, what that might tell you is, well, are these the people making decisions about the opportunities or lack thereof? Most, 51% of the organizations have actually seen the delay or cancellation of projects as a result of this. And again, the geographical impacts were very diverse. Because the job seeker group was very small, I'm going to skip over that. So the academic group of respondents, many of them saw their students' opportunities changing, with 40% of them saying they really did not know how to help their students. So that's something that presents an opportunity for Informs to say, okay, how can we help our academics, our professors and the like, department directors, how can we help them help students so that they can continue to pursue their these opportunities that they're interested in? But a third of them did say that they're encouraging students to pursue additional education. I can totally understand that. I guess it's better than just kind of hanging out and in mom's basement, mom and dad's basement, and waiting for a job. So, you know, let's continue gaining education. And associate professors made up 1/3 of the respondents. Now, I don't come from an academic background, but I suspect that for those that do, that means something to you. So, but again, we're still in the process of reviewing this data to come up with additional insights and look at how we might pursue helping these students. Let's see, so I talked about that. I'm just gonna kind of skip through here and just maybe show some of the things that I thought were that might be of interest. So here are some of the reasons based on the student responses of things they said they were seeing. So interviews, job offers rescinded, you know, change in interview process, or the actual internship or co-op opportunity change scope or something of that nature. And then overwhelmingly, people were just having a hard time finding opportunities. And then down below there, as you can see here, we also gave them an opportunity to fill in other responses. So this is some of what came out of that as well. This group of responses here. This popped up, H-1B visa problems. So, you know, that's something that may also present an opportunity to see how the universities can help students with this. We'll skip down to the practitioners. So I mentioned earlier, this was the breakdown of the practitioners that responded and what role they played in their specific organization. Here are some of the things that people were seeing happen, which pretty much aligns with what the students were seeing as well. So companies are rescinding job offers, but overwhelmingly, they're just halting their recruiting efforts. So that's, you know, that definitely presents a challenge for students, whether they're graduating this year or next year, and they're just trying to plan for the future. The business itself, we did try to gauge how that's impacting the business. And as I mentioned, projects are being delayed or canceled. Some people noted that there's missed opportunities to hire some of the top talent. If there's no budget to hire, then, you know, you may have your eye on somebody that you'd like to fill a role, but if there's no budget to hire them, then you might miss out on that opportunity altogether. I'll skip down to faculty and administration here. Here's sort of the breakdown of the different roles of the people that responded, their responses to what they've seen through working with their students, and then some of the other responses are shown there below. And then how have you stepped in to help your students? And again, as you can see, you know, nearly 40% of the people that responded said they did not know how to help. So we really like to try and help them with that. One other thing that I started looking at that sort of dovetails into this, there's an organization, it's called the Opportunity Insights, and they have an economic tracker. And this data that I'm about to show really quickly is for January this year, 15th through June. And something they show is it's the change in job postings over that period of time. And then this heat map here just shows sort of by state what's going on. And one of the things I found interesting, and so skip down to this slide, for those jobs that require extensive education, and I did not find a definition just yet of what extensive means, but I suspect that that's jobs that require some sort of a higher degree, maybe a PhD, some sort of professional certification or something of that nature. But it was really interesting to me to see that job postings are down 25%. And then also, again, the accompanying heat map here to show by state. Also, this is for considerable education. Again, I haven't quite quite found what these actually mean. So right now I'm just sort of guessing as to what they could mean. But this is just overall, and then the areas, the industries that this data covers is shown here on this slide. So that's, again, these are just preliminary results and insights. Well, the results are what they are. The survey has closed now, but the insights are preliminary, and I'll be working with the committees I mentioned earlier to draw more insights and to also come up with ideas for how we can, as Informs, help those. And that's it.
Thank you, Terry. Louis, this is also very insightful. Really appreciate your time. And is there any question from the audience? We can take one or two questions from the chat, or if you want to just unmute and ask the question. Okay, so now, so we have one question from Stephen Graves. Can you say anything about implications for Informs?
Okay, so for Informs, really how this, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the need for this survey started because we were hearing anecdotes about students having issues finding opportunities. So before we set out to say do a panel similar to this and offer advice, we wanted to make sure we understood what the actual problems are. So for Informs, we think this is an opportunity for us, for the educators, for practitioners to jump in and sort of come up with some solutions to help students navigate these uncertain times right now. You know, they've all put in place plans for their future, their career, and now they've sort of hit a brick wall. A lot of them don't know what to do next. And even some, as I mentioned, some of the advisors, the professors don't know how to help. So if there's, say, something that practitioners or companies can do, it would be great to have that collaboration where we have some of our practitioners offer up to, whether it be the educators or the students, here's what you can do. Here's what we can do to help. So we just really want to get, you know, a meeting of minds to come up with solutions so that we aren't just leaving the students, you know, out there blowing in the wind with no direction. And we don't want them to become discouraged about pursuing careers in OR and analytics.
Thank you. And I have another question from Julie Ivy. Did you collect any information related to demographics from the respondents?
No, we did not collect any demographic information. We tried to keep this as unobtrusive as possible because we really wanted to get as many responses. So we did not collect any personal or demographic information for that reason. But yeah, I definitely see how that could have been helpful for this forum.
Thank you. And is there any chance that those slides that you presented today can be shared with the community at the Minorities Issues Forum?
Because the insights are still preliminary and the team has not officially met to review and pull together a more formal response or review of the data, I'd like to hold off on sharing the slides until we can actually prepare something more formal to go forward to everyone pretty much. But that is the plan, to actually release.
I'm sorry, I kind of lose my connection for a minute. Sorry, but thank you for letting us know, and we will look forward to get that information at some point in the future.
Okay, thanks for having me.
And okay, so I think we have a couple of more questions. Let's see, really quick. Is there anything we can do as Informs so that talent is retained in the academia?
Is that question for me or?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have to defer to someone who's actually, you know, in that sort of a role. Again, I have a practice background, so I don't want to speak on something that I'm not quite qualified to speak on.
Okay.
Let me clarify.
Yes, thank you.
This is Daryl. There was a first sentence to that question. The PhD student impact for those wanting academic jobs is probably not being felt right now because those job ads start being announced maybe in July, then accelerating in August and September. So it would probably not be captured yet in the survey and in this data, but it will be happening. So I don't have any answers, but is there anything that we can do as Informs so that we can retain that talent in academia for those whose primary objective that is? And the only comparable thing I know is I think the Computing Society, that may not be their full name, collaborated with the National Science Foundation to get funding that can support 60 postdoctoral associates this year. So that creates a bridge year for those postdoctoral associates. That's not the only solution, but I thought that was a pretty forward-looking solution, and it would be interesting to brainstorm.
Yeah, I have not really started listing what sorts of solutions we can pursue at this time, but I will definitely take that to the group, and we'll definitely consider that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying the question. So thank you, Terry, for this presentation. And now we're going to transition to the third part of the presentation of the town hall. So the idea now is to have a discussion. I have invited faculty members from different institutions to talk about some of these challenges that we are facing as faculty members and also with our students, and also to provide any feedback based on their own experiences and also based on their own institutions. So the idea, so let me introduce the Yeah, I apologize. I'm having difficulties with my internet. But we have also Ruben, who's going to be moderating the discussion with me. So Ruben, are you here?
Hi, Eduardo. I'm here. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the idea now is that we open the discussion, and I was going to introduce the faculty members who are going to be joining us. So it's Dr. Julie Ivey from North Carolina State University, and Dr. Maria Majorga also from North Carolina State University, Dr. Ruben Proano from Rochester Institute of Technology, and Dr. Luis Nentaimo from Texas A&M University. So I have some questions here that maybe we can talk about. Some of these challenges, we can address them individually, or we can talk about some of the points that were raised in the first two presentations. So we also did a survey when we announced this virtual town hall, and we got feedback from faculty members and from students. We didn't have as many answers, but from the answers that we got, we identified this list that are presented in this slide. So their students are obviously concerned with their opportunities for jobs after graduation. Also, they have concerns about managing or the virtual environment, and also the mentoring that they're having with their supervisors. And then faculty members, they have concerns about remaining productive with these new challenges, including virtual meetings, and for us that have kids at home, how to do our work and also take care of the kids at home, the recruitment of graduate students, performing virtual teaching, and then also the budget cuts. So I don't know, maybe we can start with those issues and challenges. We all have this problem with our students that are graduating. So I don't know if based on your current experience, have you found a way to help students be better positioned to get jobs during this pandemic? Or is there any tools or anything that we can recommend them in order to make them more successful in this endeavor of getting jobs?
I will say, related to like the previous economic downturn, one of the things that was very common among students was to either have to stay longer and do kind of like a postdoc type of year, particularly because it is challenging, I think, particularly for international students as well, thinking about that year, because a number of faculty positions are either on hold as universities understand their situation, and then similarly that's happening with industry. So kind of related to the previous discussion, if there was some way maybe in partnership with Informs to think about postdoctoral or training opportunities for students during this time, because I believe the jobs will come back, but it's the challenges for them right now and thinking about this coming year.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that I want to encourage everybody. So if you know about a position that is available and you can share that with through the Minorities Issues Forum, then I will encourage you to do that so we can help our students to be placed in jobs that can help them move forward. I have a student, I think, or someone asking or raising their hand to ask a question. So, so let me see. There's.
Yeah, this is me. I'm an eternal student. Hi, this is Krishnan.
Yes.
So, so let me say first of all, thank you for hosting this forum and convening. I just want to add two comments to offer on both these points. For those of you who don't know me, I was the 2019 president of Informs, and I'm at Carnegie Mellon. The first thing about graduate students, one of the things that most students find is that the need to have a portfolio of projects that they can talk about, that they can talk to employers about when the opportunity presents itself. And I think COVID presents a number of opportunities for students to apply their OR and analytic skills to address a whole range of problems, from economic recovery, bringing the economy back, to even problems that you see in universities about bringing students back to campus, to testing. How do you do testing in a smart way? How do you manage hospital capacity? There's a whole range of problems that our community is very well suited to address. And one of the things we have done is to really have students have the opportunity to work on these projects and that are both meaningful, but they can also make a contribution. And it also gives them a resume building opportunity to actually have projects that are substantive that they can address. So that's one suggestion that I have to offer. This typically works well for master's types of students. The second, I guess, is for faculty. The NSF Rapid program, we've been quite successful in attracting funding from NSF Rapid. These are 3 to 5 page proposals, and they're turned around rapidly. That's why it's called NSF Rapid. They give you funding to address a problem, oftentimes, again, related to the pandemic. And I think that presents another opportunity for individual faculty. Now, when it comes to informs, I thought Taryn had some really good ideas. And one thought is, could the informs practice section play the role of connecting companies that are connected to informs, almost like a gig platform, if you will, for problems, not so much for people to get paid to do the work, but really interesting ways of connecting students to problems. That might be another idea, all of which addresses, I think, the 2 main points that are being raised here by Eduardo. So those are some thoughts I wanted to share. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I think it gives you a lot of ideas of things that we can pursue, not only within the forum, but also for the overall membership at the Informs and for all our students. Any other person who wants to provide feedback on this particular item that was, I think, the most mentioned in the survey that we performed? Students were really worried about their job search and opportunities for them to do to get hired after or during this pandemic. So we have the other thing that came to capture my attention in the survey was from a faculty perspective, how to remain productive with these challenges, with these new challenges, particularly with staying home, and if you have your family at home. How is there any strategy for us and for faculty members that have found a way to continue to be productive within this environment? So I want to hear from the faculty members and see if they can share any advice from that perspective.
Eduardo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I may not necessarily touch the second question, but I want to go back to just in terms of opportunities for students and job search, just to touch base on that one. But first, I want to thank you for putting together the town hall. And once again, this was an initiative to actually offer the opportunity to MIF members, especially our students, to share with us their concerns about how COVID has impacted them at these times, and see if we can actually find some common ideas that we can pursue. And I think this is a very exciting opportunity. I think one of the suggestions that I would say is perhaps to actually ask students and ask ourselves as faculty to look at opportunities outside of the United States. I'm doing a sabbatical right now in Scandinavia, and it's interesting how the universities reacted here. They were concerned about national funding and so on, but universities started actually putting funding to actually develop internal proposals. Of course, there's a different educational system, but the idea was to actually capture that talent and have faculty working initiatives that may be different from what they've usually been working on. And these initiatives, these proposals are not limited to, the national students. It's actually open to anyone who wants to apply. The opportunities may exist, but not necessarily in the same format. And that's actually something interesting. The number of internal proposals at universities are based to actually hire postdocs, and postdocs here in Europe are more like just full-time jobs with all the benefits included and the perks. But essentially they have particular focus on particular problems and applications or research in that case, and they are listed as jobs, not necessarily as just applying as an educational program. And they may be opportunities elsewhere too. The other thing that was interesting, and that may be a suggestion for Informs, is we focus quite a bit in terms of creating academics or fostering more academics and helping more practitioners. But I'm not so sure we've done enough to actually help our members to become entrepreneurs. And maybe this is the time in which we can see some synergies to offer some entrepreneurial mentoring for students or faculty or members who would like to actually develop their own ideas based on OR and wrap them in companies and so on. And we have a good forum where we can actually share experiences and share the practices to put together those companies and those initiatives. And maybe that's something that someone is already doing, but it might be actually interesting to actually share it formally in terms of what we can do with Informs. And those were the two things I wanted to add, Edward. And I'm not so sure how to be productive, to be sincere. Wrong person to ask.
Thank you, Ruben. And I think those are very good ideas. And maybe as a next step, in terms of the entrepreneurship portion, we should try to find out if there's anybody doing that within Informs. And if that's the case, then how can we get involved as the forum and see how can we be part of something that can be, I think it could be very beneficial for everybody. Like we can not only wait for jobs to appear, but we can also develop new jobs by becoming entrepreneurs. So I have a couple of raised hands here. Let's see. So if you raise a hand, you can talk. I don't know who was it. I have. So yeah, this is your opportunity.
Okay. Hi,
Yes.
this is Destiny.
Hi.
So on the being productive side, I've been reading a lot of books on like how to handle productivities. So like I've downloaded this new app called Libby where you can get like audiobooks for free. And one of the biggest productivity tips is to make a list and then prioritize that list in terms of like most important to least important. So like A1 is like the one thing that you need to do today to be successful, right? And just you have to choose one, because if everything's important, nothing's important. And so like actually saying, okay, like if I do this one thing today in the midst of everything that's really crazy and going on, like I've actually gotten a lot more done in this craziness because like I say, okay, like if I can do this one thing, then I'm gonna do my second most important thing. So that's like been like really helpful, just trying to like keep everything focused enough to make small progress. And then when thinking about like the rapid proposals and like proposals in general that relate to COVID, one of the things that I had asked my students was like, what do you think a good solution would be? Because all my students were just complaining all the time, and it was really like bringing me down, you know? So I'm like, okay, like one of you guys has to come up with a solution. And if your solution sounds good, then maybe I could use that to actually like get some money to do something about this thing. And so like, then I actually used and like fired from your job. So like, shouldn't we just like figure out like how people have been impacted by energy poverty. And I'm like, yes, that's a good idea. That's something I can do. That's research, right? So then that has like helped like kind of like make sure that my students are doing something that feels meaningful. It's given me some new ideas for grants. And so that's also helped with productivity stuff.
Thank you, Destiny. That's
Thanks,
very good.
This is Maria.
Maria.
So, thanks, Destiny. I love the list. I have a list every day. There's another version of it, which is a quadrant version. So you also have different ways of prioritizing in terms of, you know, urgent versus non-urgent and importance and non-importance. So I agree, like read up on whatever methods work for you. One thing I will say though, for those of us with children at home, that was just like a big slap in the face in the beginning when you're trying to figure out how they're going to go to school, and you now are teaching them while you're also trying to do your job. So oftentimes I think, you know, we had maybe figured out what worked for us, and then something happened, and then it doesn't work anymore. So or even if you don't have children at home, you have a disruption, and now whatever worked before may not be working. So I think the first thing is to acknowledge that just because what you were doing before isn't working, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's normal that you're going to have to adapt, and then you start experimenting with different things, and maybe lists didn't work for you before and now they do, or maybe before you were very productive in the morning and now you have to switch to nighttime. So I think this constant experimentation, because you're in a completely new environment, is normal. The second thing is, at the beginning, I tried to, for my virtual meetings, kind of pretend that there is no home life and somehow shut my kids out of the room and make sure that they weren't interrupting meetings. And that actually didn't work, because then you have this escalation of events maybe later that you have to deal with. So I think acknowledging that we're human and letting other people see our personal space. I mean, I've seen a lot of things where people bring their pets into their Zoom calls and things like others, it's okay, and maybe forgive yourself so that you can move on and then be productive when you can be.
Thank you, Maria. That's very good advice. I was curious because the other thing that I remember now, I mean, I have a lot of things here that are very important. I think we have material to discuss for another hour later on. But one of the things that came in the answers from the survey was for those faculty members that are tenure track, and they're being affected in terms of being productive. Is there anything that your universities are doing to help or to, I don't know, accommodate those faculty members that are tenure track at this moment?
Yeah, I can respond to that. At Texas A&M in the College of Engineering, we had some discussions with leadership regarding that issue for faculty on the tenure track. And what the university has decided is to provide a year's extension on the tenure clock. So for sure, having spoken to several faculty members, they are being affected in different ways in terms of their productivity. And so as a university, I think we have done well to provide that extension to the clock. I don't know what other universities are doing, but here at Texas A&M, that's what we have done.
At NC State, it's similar. However, it's something that faculty have to opt into. It doesn't happen automatically, but like if they opt in, it's automatic. The other thing is that the teaching ratings for the spring semester did not have a numerical component. And then they were more offered for, like they're not incorporated into like the evaluation of faculty because of the switch to online.
Same here, same here.
We have a similar situation to what Louis was describing. Again, faculty can opt out from the policy if they want to actually be evaluated sooner. But one of the things that actually is under consideration right now is the review of the annual review process. So that is not only the evaluation for tenure, but it's actually the annual formal review that goes along with it that needs to be actually changed and reflect, you know, the current situation. And that's under discussion. Once again, it's difficult to expect everyone to do exactly what they were supposed to be doing or that they committed to do, and how they're going to be evaluated in 2020 and how they're going to be evaluated in 2021.
So it looks like it's a decision made within the institution, right? So every institution will have their own guidelines and their own approach. But based on your answers, it looks like universities are open to help the faculty members that are tenure track. So for those faculty members that are not necessarily in that position, I think we can encourage them to talk to their department chairs and find out about what are the plans for the university in terms of tenure clock.
This could be an interesting survey for Informs, is to actually survey the institutions and determine what are the policies and then how are those policies evolving as the pandemic is continuing. It's interesting ephemeral data that might be helpful to Inform's membership to understand, like, what other institutions are doing can help you advocate within your own institution.
Yeah, Ruben, you were going to say something. Thank you.
No, I was just going to comment that Cole Smith and Stephen Graves have also added their input into the chat. So Cole is indicating that's an automatic year extension. Teaching evaluations can be used from this semester if the faculty wants to. And that is in Syracuse, I believe. And then Stephen Graves is indicating that I think that we are also looking at teaching assignments and trying to reshuffle, if possible, to avoid huge development investments as might be required for online teaching. Ramaya also has a couple of ideas at his input here. Token for equity, since some individuals do more to take care of others, CMU provides the opportunity to faculty to petition for an additional time over the above on the year extension.
Thank you. Yes, and I think we're getting towards the end of our time. Mm-hmm. So it's almost 3 o'clock here in Texas. So I want to thank everybody who joined us today and those who helped in putting this event together. So as I mentioned earlier, I think we have a lot of things that we can discuss. We can spend more time talking about different points that were raised in this town hall. So if anybody have questions, you can send an email to the Minorities Issues Forum email address, which is mif.informs@gmail.com. And we will try to filter those questions and arrange them in a way so we can send it to the appropriate person to get some answers, and then we can share those answers with everybody. I don't know if Ruben wants to say anything else before we close.
Is there any particular question from a doctoral student or students in the audience? It would be interesting to see. Maybe 1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
There was one that says, could you please give some general advice to PhD students who are on the job market this year? That came in.
That was, yeah. I think that's a very important question. So I mean, anyone would like to provide some feedback on that one?
Yeah, I can provide, some of the things that we are doing in our department. We are encouraging faculty to continue providing support for maybe another semester or a year to students, especially students who want to go in academia. So I know of a couple cases where the student was supposed to graduate this year, so they have kind of held back. In the meantime, they'll be doing research and making progress towards, you know, having a stronger packet when they start looking for a job next year.
I have just one comment for students who are international students who require OPT or who are thinking about doing an OPT, maybe master's students in that case. And that's just a common suggestion. Many of the international students are having quite a bit of a difficulty when they're actually trying to find a job. Perhaps more difficult times than usual. And part of it is that usually the recruiters don't necessarily know all the rules associated with the OPT and the practical training process that they have. So I would suggest to students who are in this situation that they do the research and put together a one-page document in which they basically, you know, describe what the OPT is, what the rights are, and so on and so forth. This may not apply necessarily for academia, but for those who actually are getting into an interview process with the company, and hand it into the recruiter. Typically, the recruiters may not necessarily come from HR, and they may not know all the rules, but they are people who are interested in the qualifications of the students that they're interviewing in that case. So if you are having an interview, just get prepared, bring that along. It may help you in that case. It has helped some of our students that we're advising, you know, it's a matter of getting the chance to go for the next step into the interview process in that case. And that's one thing.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Luis. I think Cole has his hand raised. Cole Smith, are you?
I did, yeah. And I'll be very brief because we have to go. But the ORMS tomorrow editors were really on the ball, and they asked me for some thoughts on the job search right now in this environment. So I provided them, probably too much because brevity isn't my strong suit, but I provided them a little bit of writing to try to help out there. I can share that with you, and then you can send to others if you want to make sure that they see that. Probably best to get it from Eduardo. I will email you if that's okay. Would you?
Yes, that's okay.
What I'll do is I'll email you their contact, because I don't want to give away that story and then, you know, before they publish it. But I think they would just give it away. I mean, it's not like priceless information or anything. It's just my thoughts. So if it's useful, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm typing my email in case you don't have it in the chat. So.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so thank you again to everybody, and this was a really good event. I think we can learn, or we learn from all the speakers, and we hope we can use this information to help our students and to be more productive as faculty members. And we as Minorities Issue Forum will see how can we continue this discussion in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.